Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. Let's talk about the very horrific and scary moment for the Pelosi family as a man entered House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home, violently attacking her husband, Paul Pelosi, in his own home. We'll bring you the latest on that situation. Also, Elon Musk, one of the world's billionaires, he has decided to move forward with buying Twitter. And now looks like it's going to become official. He has already just brought some folk from his Tesla team to come and access the code of what's going on behind the scenes of the major social media platform. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and the implications that we can expect as he starts to rein in the leadership of Twitter. So we'll have that conversation. And then later on, I want to talk about nutrition in schools and daycare centers. And what does that mean? Why it's important for the first 1,000 days of a child's life. It's important to provide them the best foods so they can grow up healthy and strong. We're going to check in with Dr. Kofi Essel to get his take on this very, very important topic. And so much more as we look at Hollywood and big budget films, how a new studies have shown that white creators get more budgeting, more money than black creators and creators of color. We'll be checking in with Culture crew member Nira Muhammad to get her take on this as well. So stay with us. A lot to get to on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, I'm so happy to be joining you, and happy Friday. It's a lot that's going on, so we want to jump right into the conversations. And there are a number of stories that we're watching right now, very important stories that we're watching right now. Certainly we'll keep you posted on, but one of the big stories is the passing away of Reverend Calvin Butts. Reverend Butts has been a huge advocate for social justice for many, many years. One of the top activists in the Black community, always speaking out on freedoms of speech in areas of voting rights, and just covering the gambit of social justice issues. So we want to send our condolences to the family of Reverend Calvin Butts. We know that he will certainly be missed, but his spirit will not be gone as he becomes one of the ancestors. But we will certainly do our part here on the Black Star Network to show our respect for the great Reverend, for the work that he has done and the impact that he has made on the struggle for so many people, not just for Black folks, but for so many folks here in this country and across the world. So we lost a giant today, but again, we want to send our condolences to the family of Reverend Calvin Butts. But looking at other news that is happening right now, folks, the latest around this situation where a man has entered the home of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Now, this just happened. Take a look at this. An assailant shouted, "Where is Nancy?" in his break-in at the speaker's home in San Francisco, and that left her husband, Paul Pelosi, to be violently attacked. And so this is a very, very scary situation here, folks, to say the least, given the fact that we are living in a time where people, especially political figures, their addresses can be found. Security is always a major factor. But even more so now than it has been over these past 10, 15 years, we can see that the political partisan divide that continues to just polarize the country is now manifesting itself in more ways than one. So we wanted to check in. I want to give you some of the latest developments on this, but we also have Culture crew member Brother Rashad Staten, to give us his insight and analysis. And I certainly would love to hear what you have to say as we're looking at this developing story. Rashad, thank you so much, brother, for joining us today. It's always good to see you. How are you feeling this afternoon?
Hey, peace and blessings, brother and audience. Always for the culture, man. As I always say, this is my favorite holiday. Fridays come around every week. We gotta celebrate, brother. We made it here, and we
That's
should
right.
be celebrated and be rejoiceful for. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rashad, talk to us about this situation with Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, who was attacked in his own home. Rashad, this wasn't something that happened on the street. This actually happened in his home as a man broke in screaming and shouting he wanted Nancy Pelosi. The other details, take a look at this. This is coming from the Washington Post. Let's post this latest development here, folks. The husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was attacked during an early morning break-in at the couple's San Francisco home by an assailant who was searching for the speaker and shouted, "Where is Nancy?" according to a person briefed on the case. Now, police arrested 42-year-old David DePape and intend to charge him with attempted homicide, assault with a deadly weapon, elder abuse, and burglary, according to the San Francisco police chief, Bill Scott. Now, this is absolutely crazy. Let's go and get some more details on that situation. The assailant, this is according to an individual who was briefed on the attack, but the assailant was looking for the speaker and before assaulting Paul Pelosi shouted, "Where is Nancy? Where is Nancy?" The person spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe the details. Now, Paul Pelosi, 82 years old, was taken to a hospital and expected to make a full recovery. That full recovery happens on the physical level, but on the emotional and psychological side, has to be super scary, bro. I can only imagine. Hell, I'm not 82 years old, and if somebody busted into my home and screaming and shouting and beating me up and all of that, that would leave a scar on me. So I can only imagine, bro.
Yeah, I'll begin with sending the condolences and speedy recovery to Paul Pelosi as well.
Yeah,
That's an unfortunate incident, and anybody that knows or have experienced, unfortunately, violent crimes or being a victim of crime, that is something that can impede on your, like you said, your your emotional and your social and psychological health. Especially for someone that is of the elder age, it just doesn't equate and it doesn't sit well. And I think you alluded to it in the best manner, right? I think at one point do we question and call what is our safe havens, right? And we always want to identify one of our safe havens being primarily our households, right? Him having a wife that has been a political figure with so much influence and power for so many years, being on the spectrum of doing good things and being questionable, and some skepticism or other things that they're involved in as a family. But nonetheless, when do we hold up the honor and the value of protecting ourselves and allowing the respectability, even when we're not in full agreement with someone, right? This calls into question the level of security and information sharing. We always know that even at this higher level of prestige in which she is, most of the time they're walking around with their own security and things of that sort. But once you get home, you want to be relieved of all of that, and you want to just be able to take off, the cape and the roles and the hats and the titles that you have, that your home should be a safe haven, and to
yeah,
have someone to impede and invoke violence on you. And then as a man, I think our first intuition is to be the protector and the providers of a household. So to hear the assailant break and enter into the home and call out for his wife, I'm sure it can be a daunting one. So even if he is in full physical, projected to be in full physical recovery, it's like that psychological recovery. Like, man, is my wife ever safe? Even because now you can't even equate safetyness and no harm given to you when you're even in what should be your most safe haven, which is your home.
yeah,
And
bro.
it's just it's unsettling, bro, and it does not fit well. And it talks about the state of politics and where this country is at. And like you said, we must revisit these stagnant lines between the blue and the red, so that people are not seeing this as a call to action to harm people because of their own stances and beliefs. That we must be just willing to be okay with those that don't believe and don't operate in a manner that we see fit for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Rashad, when you talked about just the simple fact that politics have gotten so far. People have gotten But and part of me remember, when people say stuff like, "Well, why can't politics go back to the way it used to?" Well, I I push back on that, but I do understand the sentiment because years ago, and I mean, we've seen political attacks on stuff, but outside, not in the level, not in the same vein that we see it today. But years ago, you would never think about running up on a House Speaker. You would never think about harming a congressman. I mean, you could be upset with them, but this I think speaks volumes about the power, the policies, the impact, just the overall culture of our political discourse in this country, that people are gotten so upset that they're willing to resort to violence as part of their grievance, as part of their way to show that they are dissatisfied, right? And it doesn't take that. It doesn't require that. Like, and when we talk about going to the polls, of course, we know midterms are coming up soon. But when we say, okay, go to the polls and vote people out, to some people, that's just not enough. To some people, that is small talk. Like, you literally have to cause a person physical harm in order for them to stop, the policies that they may put into place. So it's very, very unnerving. I want to just take a couple of comments from our online culture crew because folks are checking in about this. Real Brooklyn, you say, I wish no ill will on anyone, but sometimes it takes things like this to happen for people in power to understand the issues regular folks are dealing with every day. Just saying. Rashad, I mean, I understand what Real Brooklyn is, and Real Brooklyn appreciates you, and thank you so much for being honest for that. I agree that it sometimes will take a dramatic moment to shift people's perspectives. But what's your take on that, Rashad?
Yeah, I understand the sentiments. I don't agree with it full heartedly in a sense because I don't think to raise the level of awareness we should inflict pain, harm, or violence on someone. Because especially coming from who we are is how I show up. Is much of the times we often are on the victimization side, so we had to show some level of empathy and understanding. But also those that are more politically astute know that there's other and more effective and impactful ways of raising the awareness and accountability on our elected officials to operate in a manner that you're serving the public. And I don't think to impose on violence and imposing and doing a break in entry and to cause any physical harm is not going to make someone pass a policy, look towards assessing it anymore, because now you have made them prioritize their own safety and livelihood before the policy in itself in which they were actually going to work towards or you wanted them to actually advance or reassess. So actually in that duality, you're actually now have put your priorities at the second or the ladder of what is now the human nature of making sure I want to say longevity and perseverance, and that sense of us living and breathing and able to survive. It's going to be our first intuition as a human person. So I don't agree with that sentiment, although I understand. And if it doesn't, I don't think it takes physical harm for someone to understand the common person.
Yeah.
And the realities that we're in. So, although that analogy can strike home to such sense of cultural understanding and a sense of political and bureaucracy, it is not the best direction.
Yeah, and see, here's the other part about it. So imagine if Michelle Obama or Barack, President Obama, is in a place, or their children, I'm using them as an example because they're beloved of among our people, among Black
Yep.
folks, right? But imagine if they are moving, if Michelle is in a hotel and somebody, is and I'm just saying, and I'm looking at this situation just from a human perspective. I just wouldn't want no one to run up in no one's house.
Yeah, our distance and proximity should not take away our empathy and level of understanding for humanity, right? It's
Yeah,
only because it's not our skin folk doesn't mean that we shouldn't show up in solidarity and understanding of someone that had to experience this. Because if the shoe is on the other foot, we will call out racism, we will call out, you know, domestic terrorism and things of that sort. So we got to be mindful of what we put out as a community of people to say, hey, the rooster had landed, the chicken has landed, and things of that sort. That should not be the mantra or what we're projecting out in the world. Because if we want others to humanize us, we got to be able to willing to give that
Yeah.
back as
Yeah.
well. So I just want our audience and those that are looking at this as
Yeah.
a space of opportunity to raise awareness of the issues and the political stances and how people should advocate and support for our communities, that violence is not the answer.
Yeah.
And it's a common buzzword and a jargon, but it is actually in the sense of humanity. That's what we should be actually centered on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and it calls into me, right?
Yeah.
They have already projected the charges that they want to. They already have the charge they intend to give this the assailant. And I'm looking at this as, man, if they can move this quick for a home invasion and things of that sort, why is it taking so long for them to assess the implications of January 6th? So it's like, come on now, you got to pick and choose. But
Right.
this caused them, and especially the Speaker of the House, to now say, in the same manner in how we expedited this to resolve things that are more personal to me, let's address the things that happened on June 6th, January
Yeah.
6th, from a national perspective, and let's move these things forward.
Absolutely. And Real Brooklyn, this is not a shade to you at all, bro. It's not that I know that you were expressing a sentiment, but I'm speaking to those who may actually feel like, well, that's due justice, or they feel like, she quote unquote, Paul and Nancy deserves to have someone to break into their home. I'm saying that that's not called for. That's not called for. You know what I mean? And we're not even at that point in this process yet that we need to run up in somebody's home, because again, I'm thinking about, if this was happening to one of our beloved political figures, will we want this? Will we want this? So again, Real Brooklyn, no shade on you. And you mentioned nothing I said wish for anyone to be harmed, but just as this country came to be and laws created based on actions of some, this country and others wouldn't exist without pain. You're right. You are absolutely right.
That historical analogy is
that's
accurate.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. So, Real Brooklyn, I appreciate you bringing up the sentiment, because we do want to still put it out there that at the end of the day, we may disagree, but I'm not trying to run up in your home and cause harm to you and your family. I'm not going to condone that. That should not be a thing that we should all agree and say, yeah, we should do that. Because again, if it were one of us, then we wouldn't want that. John Riles checked in and said, if you have a valid cause, then the grassroots will stand behind it. The issue is that folks simply want what they want, whether the majority agree with it or not. That's the problem, John. And I'm glad that you brought this point up, because that's exactly where we are. That people don't even want to consider another person's viewpoint, or they don't even try to understand where people are coming from. They just like, no, I want what I want. And here's the thing, folks, we are so interconnected. And as much as we might want to believe, Rashad, that we're separate, like we legitimately are a part of all different sorts of systems where we're interconnected, that in order for this country to run each and every day, it has to have each one of us, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not saying that to like, oh, let's just completely diminish racism and sexism and all of those other isms, but it was just making a point to what John has said, and I'm going to go back to it very quickly. John, you bringing it up. If you have a valid cause, then the grassroots will stand behind it. The issue is that folks simply want what they want, whether the majority agree with it or not. And now we're talking about trying to promote ideas, promote ideologies that are not in the best interest of the majority, right? So you got just a small group of people that say, no, we want this. Bump all of the majority. Everybody else, this is what we want. Becomes a real issue. So can you speak to that, bro? Because I think that's an excellent part of this conversation, that at the end of the day, we also have to adhere to, if the majority that has not decided on this being the right course of direction, then how can we get so upset, especially if we say we're part of a democracy with majority rules?
Yeah, I think it's in a space of understanding in the respect of the republic in which which this government operates under. Is if it's a democratic process, understand that power and influence shifts as the majority of whichever party is in that house and has the influence of leadership, speakers, and presidents and the Congress itself. Is being more mindful and astute of how the political and the democratic process is operating, and understanding that when you're engaging in politics, it's not you're not going to turn that leaf within the next day. It's going to take probably 4 years at minimum, but it's going to take even longer than that to see policy actually implement into daily operations, best practices, the proper allocations of funds, and the placement of others. And like I always say, if you don't agree with what's being on, there's plenty of opportunities for us to appoint, elect, and lift up other leaders to serve in those positions. Now, what we must do is galvanize as a community, galvanize as a country, and galvanize in common ideologies and beliefs that we have a party and representatives that can speak on our behalf, and understanding that it has to operate and be replicated from the local to the state and to the federal. And when it comes down to the federal, in a sense, is now you got to understand, how do you gain a sense of accessibility to influence these elected officials to have some understanding of those that are not in the majority, or those have opportunities or outlooks that are the minority at that time because of whichever political party is
Yeah,
holding the most and majority of those seats. Does not negate that your vision, your aim, and what you want to see is not valuable. It's just understanding that, hey, if I want to be a part of this game, if I want to take it as simple as basketball, man, if I want to see my team win, I got to make sure that I'm healthy. I am training. I am practicing. I
yep,
am watching so that I can be in the game, so that I can make that defensive stop or take the shot when it's needed. And we have to see
absolutely.
the sports analogy and how it correlates directly to politics. If you want to see it, you have to be it at times.
Absolutely. Just want to just throw in some real time example of this. Governor Glenn Youngkin, who's the Republican governor of Virginia, he made a joke about the assassination attempt on Speaker Pelosi, and while campaigning for GOP congressional candidate Yesley Vega, he said there is no room for violence anywhere, but we're going to send her back to be with her husband in California. Look, look. Hey, let me just tell y'all something, folks. Let me just tell you. Let me just live. And we got like 1 minute to put this out there. Once that Pandora's box is open, where we joke, and I mean, he said an assassination attempt. So let's take it to that. If a man coming into your home, screaming out for your name or screaming out for your spouse's name, and you know he coming not to say hello, he coming to do some harm, that's an assassination attempt, right? So the thing is, if we start to joke about this type of these moments and this situation, not just this one, but just across the board when anything like this happens, right? And that Pandora's box is open. See, the crazy part is, and this is the crazy part about these GOP people that I don't understand, Rashad, and I know we got like a minute left on it. On January the 6th, you hardly saw any Republicans running to the crowd.
Speak on it. Speak on it.
They didn't run to the crowd. When they show that footage of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, guess who was in there crowding around trying to figure out if they're going to be safe? Mitch McConnell, other Republican leaders. You see what I'm saying? Because you can play around with the fire. But once that fire starts to spread, you don't have no power. At first, you could be like, "Oh, I'm gonna just throw this little." You're gonna gaslight it a little bit. Boom, boom. Yeah. It's funny until that sucker just starts to spread, and now you don't have no power, no control to stop where it goes and how it impacts folks. Right? That's the same thing with violence, bro. Political violence has no boundaries.
Right.
And what we saw on January the 6th and all of that stuff, they would have killed Republicans if those Republicans came across as being weak.
Right.
If they got their hands on Mitch McConnell, they probably would have killed him because of his issue, his relationship with Donald Trump. You see what I'm saying? So you can't be like, no, this is a serious situation. This is a very serious situation in a sense that you cannot control this. This is violence. Violence can't just be like, oh, okay, I want you to be violent for them, but when it comes to us, be peaceful. Nah,
Right.
dog. It doesn't work that way. And so to Governor Glenn Youngkin, I wouldn't make jokes about it because you don't know what type of enemies you got.
Right. Gotta be
Because if they can
mindful
get to the
of what
House
you put out there.
Speaker in her home, what do you think they can do to you?
Right.
Go ahead, bro. You got the final word on this.
No, I think you hit it right there. I think it's the sense of, like you said, controlling this fire in itself, so that those that are the ones that initiated and lit the flame was not burnt themselves. And actually gaslighting and making a joke of it is something that shouldn't be taken lightly at all. One, because it calls in question our national security, and it also calls into question the level of, do we give this space for those that act in this manner of ignorance and violence and disruption, that they can then give that to any community. It just seems if you can do that to someone of that prestige and others, what happens to someone that is not of that caliber, does not have that sense of visibility, is not able to travel, is not able to remove themselves out of a place of uncertainty and harm. I think it calls into question another analysis of how both parties, in a bipartisan effort, put out a common message that this is not tolerable, is not acceptable, and that they are willing to address and have some agreements amongst themselves that
Yeah,
we don't be a divisive country that shows up in vigilantes and other hate groups and things of that sort, that is imposing violence on everyday citizens, and now feel as though that they have the freedom to do so to elected officials, and even go into our federal buildings and do the same. Right? It went from Capitol Hill to now someone's living room. So what is next, right? And I think it just calls into question the certainty and the security of this country, down to the highest persons in office, down to the person that's getting off the regular public
fact,
transportation.
fact. Look, Republican Representative Adam Kissinger tweeted, I'm waiting for the police briefing, but I want to be clear, and we can put this up there if we can really quickly, Keenan and Ariel. He said, I'm waiting for the police briefing, but I want to be clear. When you convince people that politicians are rigging elections, drinking babies' blood, etc., you will get violence. This must be rejected. This is why the January 6th committee is so important. This is from Republican Representative Adam Kissinger of Illinois making this statement, talking about it. Not a friend of Donald Trump, but he understands the implications of it. You look back in American history, you can see how this thing can go left very, very quickly. And so, it's important. If you start feeding people lies, and this is my final point on this before we move on. If you start feeding people lies, then guess what the lie does? It makes them think outside of themselves, uncharacteristically. After a while, you're gonna their heads are not in a good space.
And you can't distinguish truth from
You
falsehood.
can't distinguish truth
Their
from
reality
falsehood.
becomes their own lived perspective.
There it is. You might as well call that joint like the multiverse or something. It becomes a whole different reality.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because truth brings clarity, lies brings confusion.
Right. And we're living in a
And guess what? Folks are confused today. You know it, bro, and I know it, and I'm sure many of our Culture Crew members that are watching online, they know it. Truth brings clarity, lies bring confusion. And guess what? That's why we need to say the truth, speak the truth in this day and time, because we've been lied to, and we've been lying to each other for so long that now we don't know up from down, left from right. And guess what? People running up in each other's homes and trying to commit harm to people because they've been fed the lies, bro. They've been fed the lies. All right, look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation. I want to have a discussion about Elon Musk, and now that he is head of Twitter, what we can expect from the billionaire. He made a little video. We're going to show you a little video because he went to the San Francisco headquarters of Twitter to talk about, to show that he's the big man in charge. He actually renamed himself on the platform, calling him Chief Twit. What can we expect? Some folks saying, look, Kanye might be coming back. Donald Trump might be coming back. What do you think may happen? Stay with us. That discussion is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
This is our time, our moment to move forward, beyond the gun violence, the hospital closures, the unaffordable housing. Brian Kemp's Georgia for the wealthiest few. Stacey Abrams is looking out for every Georgian. She'll invest our $6 billion surplus in the fundamentals, education, healthcare, housing, and a good living, putting more money in your pocket to build one Georgia where everyone has the freedom to thrive.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
We've got to stand up. Republicans are banning abortion rights, tearing down democracy, blocking progress. But when Democrats stand together, we win. Because we voted, Democrats stood up for black lives, voting to ban police chokeholds, stood up for black women, putting one on the Supreme Court, stood up for our families, lowering cost of health care and prescriptions and capping insulin, and stood up for millions by slashing student debt. This November, let's stand up together and keep making progress.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you for tuning in. Folks, let's talk a little bit about Twitter as Elon Musk takes the reins of leadership of the social media platform. Take a look. He's begun his takeover of Twitter. Now people are speculating as to what is going to happen on the platform, who's going to be back, who's going to be reinstated, and a whole lot of questions around this issue. Let's bring back Culture Crew member Rashad as we talk about this. Rashad, now that Elon Musk is back, has decided to move forward on this deal, $44 billion deal. It was a lot of wrangling over the past couple of months. He said he didn't want it. They want it. They told him he had to get it, and all that stuff happened. Now he's moving forward. But here's what was reported by Yahoo News. Take a look, folks. It says that Musk is taking the reins just ahead of a Friday deadline to complete the deal. He spent time in Twitter's San Francisco headquarters this week, where he met with employees. He also reportedly brought in some Tesla engineers to help assess Twitter's code, according to Bloomberg. Musk, who changed his Twitter bio to Chief Twit, has made it clear he intends to bring other big changes to the social media company. He has said, both in public appearances and in private messages, that he wants to relax Twitter's moderation rules and that he dislikes permanent bans. He's also likely to let more staff go, though he has told employees the cuts won't be as high as 75%. Now, the other thing about this, Rashad, is that he already has fired some of Twitter's top executives, and they say that firing may cost him around $200 million just for them top executives. I'm not pocket watching nobody, but damn. But more importantly, he's taking over this platform. Which do you expect to see on Twitter? I use Twitter. I do like Twitter. I appreciate the conversations. I mean, some conversations I can do without, but I generally like Twitter. I think there's better feedback that you get, but I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. What's your take on it, bro?
I'm gonna say one. This conversation is probably too rich for my blood. I think.
Why?
My account is not alluding to Chief Tweet's accounts, right? So I'm gonna stay in my respective lane and only operate of what I share from how I actually use Twitter as a tool. But it's more of like information sharing, right? I think that along with a few other platforms that we use most commonly are ones where you can have the accessibility of a lot of information from a global perspective. And if you are following and engaging with the right folks, you can have a level of discernment to gauge what is truth versus what is the falsehoods and the fake news that is out there. And I think just learning and observing Chief Tweet, Elon Musk himself, when he comes in being such of an innovative and thought progressive leader and executive, you definitely know that he's going to shake up the room, that he's going to change personnel, and that anyway in particular cost is not a barrier to him, right? We've seen this even in his acquisition of Twitter itself, that cost is not an issue for something that he wants to gain influence, power, and control over. And I think what he may do, we may see some more openly accessibility that gives platforms for people that operate in this level of freedom of speech. And I'm putting a quotation purposely around that he's going to try to lift these permanent bans and give folks like Trump and Kanye back this platform to give their outlooks. But I also think that he's going to use Twitter as a space to operate in which it was initially set it out for, and that's to share information broadly from a global scale and to allow fast information to be used. But also Twitter can be used as a research engine. And I think Twitter can actually go back and assess all of the different parameters from ads to marketing to all of the different bots, because now if you're looking at now, Twitter is over and fluctuated with bots, right? And these are not humans. These are actually based off of algorithms, someone that's in Silicon Valley that's just trying to run up numbers and things of that sort. And it takes away from the human interaction because we have to engage with algorithms that are driving us to get information and purchase things based off of what they want us to go towards. So I hope that he brings back the humanity and make it more easily accessible for communities, and as well as make Twitter accessible and attractive to a younger population. Me engaging in my space, young people don't use Twitter as much as I once was when I was of their age in this adolescent teenage years.
Oh no, bro! This ain't your father's social media platform.
Bro, it's like you gotta have it. Like, is Twitter now gonna be able to come back and compete?
Hey, come on, Rashad. You and I, we study language, we study sociology, we study psychology, and I'm saying just you and I personally, we study these things in social sciences. Communication, having the power or creating the platform by which people can communicate on is one of the greatest powers that we can have during this information age. If you can determine how people communicate, how they communicate, what they communicate, You have power, which is why we even have Black Star Network, right? At the end of the day, we're talking about telling our stories and pleading our case. That's powerful.
Correct.
That's powerful. So I don't want anybody to try to play off as if this is just some PR stunt. The man is running Twitter. Now, no platform, social media platform, digital platform, no platform is going to exist without reflecting the ideas of its founder, the ideas of those who run it. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. So I think we're going to see an Elon Musk version of social media. Of course, he talks about this is one of the greatest public squares, town halls. He's all about freedom of speech. And people are concerned as to what that means, because that can have a number of different iterations. But the reality is we're going to see a different social media platform. And look, and I want to raise up, and I think, John, you said it well, and I like this, and I'm glad you bring this point up. You said all billionaires seek to own platform by which they can program the masses and manage their image. Well, let me tell you something. If I'm a billionaire and I can create, or if I can invest, or if I can take over a platform by which you have millions of people having these conversations, that is an investment. I'm gonna just keep it real. That's an investment. It's like for us in terms of our liberation, and I'm sure you studied this part of our history. When any Black freedom fighter emerges from our struggle, one of the first things I've noticed is that most of your freedom fighters always say we need to create our own schools. Why? Because you can help and shape how people think. Same thing with social media.
Yep, correct.
Same thing with social media. That if you can shape how people see themselves, how they can see the world, you can create a context by which to do that, and then give them a platform by which they can do that. You have influence, you got power. You don't need a title. You don't need to be in a certain position, because why? You already are considered to be influential. You already have that power. Let's go back to what folks are saying. Hero Shots. You said the only rules on Elon's Twitter are don't talk smack about Elon on Twitter. LOL. That might be it. I don't know.
The only firewall. You cannot speak bad of Chief.
Hey, look. He might not be like Jack Dorsey, where Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter. I don't think a lot of people know who Jack Dorsey is, right? But he's the guy behind Twitter. But Elon, you tag him, he might fire back at you, because this is what he's been doing, right?
Yep.
He's gonna trouble you.
He's active on these platforms.
So he's active. He's gonna trouble you. So you talk big and bad about Elon on his Twitter. Hey, and can you really get mad? Can you get mad if he gets thrown off? Because guess what? It's his platform.
Mm-hmm.
It's his platform. If somebody were to come on this show and begin disrespecting me, guess what I'm going to ask my team to do? Cut the camera off.
Sense of control, right?
I mean, I ain't talking about disagreeing. I'm talking about straight disrespecting. We can disagree all day, but if you call me out my name and all of that, cut the camera off. He gone. He gone. She gone. Chad, you say you think Twitter is full of hate now. Just wait. Well, take a look. Take a look. Here's one of the things that people are wondering: if Donald Trump is not on Twitter right now, folks. So if somebody say, "Oh, Donald is back," he's not on Twitter right now. Matter of fact, he has said in a number of interviews that he said this on earlier today, that his Truth Social account, that he was very happy that Twitter is now in sane hands. He loves truth. Okay. He also said, "I don't think Twitter can be successful without me." This is what he told Fox Digital News earlier today. He said that he planned to say it again.
The level of narcissism is
beyond me. Bro, this is Donald Trump. Narcissism and Donald Trump are one and the same. He also said he planned to remain on Truth Social, which he said is better, safe, and feels more like home. And he said that if given the opportunity for his account to be reinstated, he declined to say if he would use it again.
Cap. what the young people say, cat.
Hey, yo, big red cat.
Big,
big red cat.
Cat, bro.
Trump, you lying. You love truth, but you're lying.
He probably already have tweets just sitting in his notes section, just ready to
copy to get the email. Your Twitter account has been reactivated. Yes, sir. I'm back. You're lying. Big red cat. All right. Let's go back to what folks are talking about in our culture crew. Jay, now you checked in and said, I think his new nickname really isn't new. I just think that it gives him an excuse to feel good about what the bullies called him when he was little. Twit. Hey, he using that name. That's what I thought was funny, Jay. Now, like, at the end of the day, if he was called, oh, you a twit, but you're on my platform, though.
Mm-hmm. And then what he say when he brung the what was it, the sink in there as he walked into the headquarters? It's like he's playing to this, like, man, it's this level of marketability and visibility of certain. You may not like these people, they're very narcissistic, very egotistical, but it is humorous.
Right.
Because they are still using their influence and power and sometimes their financial gains to reassert themselves. And like you said, this man, for the money that he spent, the losses that he's going to take in removing certain executives and leader personnel from Twitter, he knows the end game. And for him to invest in something, he sees it suitable and see it valuable to invest in it for a gain and a bigger profit at the large end. And I'm just curious to see how he's going to angle it for his own specific reasons, because we know that he's going to show up in his own specific reasons, going to try to promote his own businesses, Tesla, SpaceX, and all the other ventures that he's engaged in. But I think it's just going to open up a new way of us utilizing this platform. But I hope, again, that it stays user-friendly. It minimizes the level of bots engaging and diluting conversations and through comments, and that we don't get caught up into this world. But I think his space is, if we have just witnessed the revamping of Facebook now operating as metaverse, the second largest platform being Twitter, of course, would certainly go under a wardrobe change. And I think that it was foreseen to come, and I think we just living in it now with a lot of uncertainty. But the certainty that we do have is that it's now owned by Elon, and we can see how he's rolled out all of his other ventures, that he may take that same approach with Twitter.
Absolutely. Mike V, you said it has to be profitable for Elon Musk. If not, it's a waste of money. YouTube is the biggest revenue generator for Google. Twitter can't compete at that level and doesn't have the subscriber base either. But that's two different types of platforms, YouTube and Twitter. YouTube is video based. It's a video platform, and Twitter is not that. But Twitter has a lot. And it can bring more. It can still bring more. But the whole point of social media platforms is to keep all of us engaged. That's the point. It's social media, so we can always stay tapped in, always stay engaged, right? And Karen, this is to your point. Karen brought it up. We have the option to choose which social media platforms we follow, if at all. Personally, I can live a full life and happy life without ever using Twitter. That's true. That's the same way for IG. That's the same thing for Facebook. But guess what? You got a generation. We got a generation that has grown up on these platforms. And at this point, these platforms are such an integral part of who we are, what we do, and how we do things. It's an integral part. So I don't know, as much as some of us may say, oh, no, these things are going to die out. I don't think that they will, Rashad.
I don't even. Not in this tech society that we're living in. These platforms come out, go to spaces for information sharing, for dialogues, for debates, for quick glances into people's lives and accessibility and visibility. That these are going to be around for a while. I think We will not see something where it has become a disengaged platform like others have used MySpace and seen how it shifted from a social communication platform to now a music platform. That Twitter will continuously probably stay in the sense of using language, quick verbiage and descriptors to share out information with links and others that direct you to other sources of information sharing, that I don't think they're trying to compete with Facebook, and they're not trying to compete with the others because it's to be used in a different manner. And like you said, you can look at analysis, you can look at data points that can definitely correlate to which demographic of folks, from age, from level of socioeconomics to education to what are hot moments when people are using them and things of that sort. I know for certain when we were doing our grassroots initiatives on the ground during the uprising, Twitter was one of our most user-friendly platforms to learn from each other, from other communities that have already experienced civil unrest, right? So these platforms serve their purposes, right? And they're going to continuously adapt. And as they continuously adapt, people are going to see opportunities for advancement, and they're going to see opportunities to strengthen it or to use it for their own personal gains. But what we must do as a people is be mindful of what we share, be mindful of how we digest the information that we're sharing, and what we see as deemed suitable for our particular needs. I myself am not overly active on Twitter, but I know for certain if I want to do a quick search on something, I go to Twitter, right? And if I go for Facebook for something completely different, and I go to Snapchat and I go to Instagram for completely different, they're giving different emotions, they gain different reactions to me. And if I want to share communication to a different audience, you have to share it in those different platforms to gauge where the people are at. You have to meet the people where they at, and the people in today's world is on social media platforms.
Hey, bro, that's what it is. Corinna, I love what you have to say about this. And I think I want to get this final point as we wrap up this part of the discussion. But Corinna, you said when social media initially came about into existence, it was lighthearted and fun. Now it has evolved into something more harmful than the good. Yeah. It was lighthearted and fun, but now it is become weaponized, right? Political weaponry, social, economic. You're right. You're absolutely right. And here's the thing. I'm sure you probably thought about this as well, Corinna. I don't think we're ever going to go back to lighthearted and fun. I don't think any one of, and I know there are a number of growing or new platforms that are coming up. I mean, we always talk about fan base. We could talk about some of the Black platforms that are out there. But at the end of the day, this is where we are. These platforms are having conversations that reflect where we are in this country.
Correct.
And guess what? It's not the worst thing for us to have these discussions, right? In these public spaces. Now, yes, some of these discussions can get very vile, can get very nasty. But I'm saying, how many of us actually we gain something when we read other people's view of the world, other people's view of the cities that we live in, right? Other people, when big national moments come up, we gain something. We engage in those conversations. I mean, there is some good in bringing people together in a digital space to talk about these things, right? And hopefully in a healthy way, in an engaging way. There is something good to come into that space. So I think that's the big part of it. Like, because I don't want us to get in a space like we do this show on a digital platform, right? So if I'm saying, no, we don't need digital platform, then I'm cutting us off at the knees at Black Star Network. We need to be in digital spaces to bring people together, to cross boundaries, to cross racial and ethnic lines. Y'all could just tune in and be a part of the conversation. And so, it's back to your point, Corinna. It was lighthearted and fun, but guess what? The country is at a certain place. We're at a crisis moment in this country. We need to talk about it with each other, because we're not going to have the access to talk about it with our political leaders and other leaders of this country. But we damn sure should be able to talk about it with each other. Rashad, you got the final word. What's your take, bro?
I think one in particular is the reality of, and in light of the comment that our culture audience members said as well was the reality that the lightheartedness and the fun was diminished once we started to realize that the data itself correlates to a monetary gain. So these platforms are now collecting the data of the users and now using that to influence decision making, political agendas, and things of that sort. And I think we need to be mindful of that, and we create platforms that are specifically created for us to be fun, engaging, and to just be interact with our humanity within the global spectrum. But we are not going to see these platforms that have been around for years now, being Facebook, Twitter, and even Instagram and MySpace, be used for lightheartedness fun anymore, because they have correlated how the data that they're collecting can then move particular agenda. So that time once in the society would never probably be the same again. And that if we want to see those others, we have to take the tutelage to create it.
That's absolutely it. My man, Rashad, thank you so much, brother, for being with us. We know you rocking and rolling. You continue to do the great work as being a nonprofit leader and activist, and just an all-around good brother that's involved in the struggle. We thank you, bro, for your time today. And God willing, we reconnect with you next week.
Hey, peace, and always for the culture, brother. Take care. Happy Friday.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy Friday, bro. Rashad checking in as always on Fridays. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's shift the conversation from the digital space to the cafeteria, as we're going to have a conversation about nutrition for our children in schools and daycare centers, and why it's important for us to take a look at the first 1,000 days. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Kofi Essel to give us some insight on this. And we're also going to be joined by Culture Crew member Nira Muhammad. So stay with us. That conversation, we're also going to talk about what's the latest study in TV showing about content creators, especially people of color, Black folks that are creating content. We're going to talk about that. And in the next hour, folks, I told you I got something special I'm going to share with you, something real big. So I'm going to drop it on you in the next hour. So stay with us. A lot to get to right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
We've got to stand up for Republicans are banning abortion rights, tearing down democracy, blocking progress. But when Democrats stand together, we win. Because we voted, Democrats stood up for Black lives, voting to ban police chokeholds, stood up for Black women, putting one on the Supreme Court, stood up for our families, lowering cost of health care and prescriptions and capping insulin, and stood up for millions by slashing student debt. This November, let's stand up together and keep making progress.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Thank you so much for tuning in for the second hour of today's broadcast. And folks, if you have been enjoying what we've been talking about in the first hour and you understand the importance and value of what we've been talking about, we want to invite you to be a part of the movement as we're looking to take this platform to the next level. We want you to join us, subscribe to Black Star Network, and to give financially to the work that we're doing, because it's important work. It's important work. We're having conversations, getting you engaged, making sure our discussion topics are relevant to you. And then at the end of the day, we're building a community of people that are hopefully feeling like they are being inspired and a community that is helping them to understand the world better and understand themselves better. So your dollars matter. Make sure you go to blackstarnetwork.com to support us today. Also, while you're on there, make sure you follow us on our Twitter and Instagram at Black Star Network. And so follow me, yours truly, Faraji Muhammad. You can hit me up at The Real Faraji on IG. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Faraji, as well as Facebook at Faraji Muhammad. And let's continue the progress of building this community. All right, folks, let's have a conversation about nutrition, as this is a huge part of the discussion, even during a post-pandemic learning experience that COVID has put us all under. We know that our children have been having some real struggles in the classroom as a result of COVID-19, being in the digital space and not being able to engage with one another as we used to a couple of years ago. And schools are trying to figure out how to get back on track with that. But there's another issue that comes up in the cafeteria, which is about nutrition. Now, take a look at this. This is some of the data that nearly 11% of children age 0 through 5 live in food insecure households. Take a look at this, folks. And according to the USDA, they define nutrition security as consistent access, availability, and affordability of foods and beverages that promote well-being, prevent disease, and if needed, treat disease, particularly among racial, ethnic minority populations, lower income populations. And the recent global pandemic only amplified the reality that millions of families and children experience food and nutrition insecurity every day, including families with babies and children not having access to child or daycare and early education programs where they would receive regular meals and snacks. Now, the 1,000 Days Organization, which is an initiative of FHI Solutions, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, is focusing on ways to strengthen existing nutrition programs that support families experiencing nutrition insecurity, ultimately helping to create a healthier future for our children. Here to talk to us a little bit about the work of 1,000 Days and the importance of nutrition and us having a conversation about nutrition insecurity is Dr. Kofi Essel, who is a board-certified community pediatrician at Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C., and assistant professor of pediatrics at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Services. Dr. Kofi, thank you so much for joining us, brother. It's always good to hear from you. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. And also joining us is Culture Crew member Nira Muhammad, who is an educator. She is also the host of Queen Talks with Nira, and she is an activist, an author, a writer, screenwriter, doing a lot of great work. Nira, good to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always. Thanks for having me, Faraji.
Absolutely. Dr. Kofi, let's start off with you. You know, when we're talking about this 1,000-day window, what does that mean?
Yeah, great question. I don't think many people think about the 1,000-day window. Typically, when we think about 1,000-day window, we think about the point of conception all the way to the age of 2. the point of conception all the way to the age of 2. And this window is a critical time period for a few reasons. We know that the brain is growing at its fastest rate at this time. By the age of 2 to 3, you're seeing about 80% of the brain develop. By the age of 5, you're seeing about 90% of the brain develop. Because of this rapid development in the brain, it's so important that we have the right environment for a child, a young child in the womb and outside of the womb to grow and develop. If they're not given the optimal nutrition, if they're not provided with the great support system around them, if we don't reduce toxic stress around them, we know that it can impact their future for the long run.
Wow. So let me ask you the question, Doc. How many of us know about this 1,000 days? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I never heard it, and maybe I missed something. The times of information I took around parenting, but I never heard, hey, the first 1,000 days are important. Is this not a part of the conversation when we have children or when we go through that first doctor's visit?
It should be a bigger part of the conversation. You have something happening here, right? So you have a pregnant mother who goes and sees their OB, and then after they deliver, they come to see the pediatrician. Is there conversation? Is there cross communication? Not always, not all the time. At the end of the day, the OB-GYNs are doing a great job talking to the mothers, talking to the parents, trying to get them ready. But do they know? Are they insightful that, hey, everything I do now, the things that my child is exposed to, the stress that I'm under, every food item that I eat affects the growth and development of my child now and in the future. When that child is developed and hasn't started speaking yet and is not hearing everything I say, I think, is that an opportunity? Are they hearing what I'm saying? Are they able to have a result, a negative result from the experiences that they have early on before they start speaking? And the answer is yes. All of these things can happen before the child even starts saying anything. They're listening to us. They're watching us. They're paying attention to everything. And the foods that they eat matter.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to ask you one more question, then I want to bring in Nira, as she has worked with children in the classroom, and I'm sure she has some thoughts about this as well.
Oh, even better, Faraji, I've been through the process. I'm a mom.
Right.
I can answer that question.
I was just about to say that. Of course. And so, Doc, when we look at this situation here, if we're not having those conversations, it seems like, and I'm just going to take a wild guess here, that predominantly Black mothers, that this affects nutrition insecurity affects predominantly Black mothers. Am I right in my assessment of this?
You're right. You're right, 100%. When you look at the data across the board, we see that food and nutrition security is more prevalent in Black and brown communities, up to 2 to 3 times the rate in Black and brown communities. You see that across the board. And of course, we can trigger, where does that come from? We know there are reasons that the things that we see are the way they are. We can link back to systemic racism, intergenerational poverty. We can even think back to how communities of color have been disinvested into, right? So all of these things trigger what we see today.
All right, dear, let's bring you in. You are a mom. You are an you are an educator, and you understand. I mean, this has always been, I think, one of like your passion points, which is, on your platform of on your podcast, Queen Talks with Nero, in your speeches when you go out and talk to a lot of women, you often talk about the importance of having prenatal care, understanding the importance of nutrition. You're certainly in the space of advocating for stress-free environments. What's your take of this?
Well, I want to first say that there are so many resources out there for Black women, for all women. I know for me, when I was a young mother expecting my first child, there were so many programs in the state of Maryland and Baltimore City that was really, really helpful, from phone calls just to check up on me, to see how I was doing. And these are all free programs. I remember even getting this like big, beautiful book that like walked me through the milestones of every week. I mean, literally every single week. And these are all free things that were given to me as a mom. OBGYNs definitely talked to me about the importance of nutrition for myself as well as the baby. I mean, these are things that are talked about often throughout the pregnancy, which is why prenatal care is so important, because they're checking those levels. They're asking you, what are you eating? I know for me, during my pregnancies, I was actually really sick a lot. I had hyperemesis gravidarum with both of my pregnancies. And so I struggled to even keep food down. So they are there. They walk you through the process. They have women who literally would just check up on me just to see how I was eating. And then even for those moms who are part of the WIC program, when you go to WIC, you literally have to sit and watch videos that talk about food. I mean, they were boring as hell, but you had to sit through it. And so, you know, they taught us about breastfeeding and the importance of it. You can have a free lactation specialist. I mean, these are free resources that are there. If you are a mother, especially if you're, and I'm going to say even more so if you're on the low income spectrum, because you can get free healthcare through the state. I got to say, I had a job in the school, and I took that free healthcare from the state because it was actually better prenatal care than the insurance that I was paying as a teacher. So I was like, wow, I'll take that. There's so many free resources from the start to the finish and all throughout. Even when Nigel was an infant, I always felt like the resources were there. I think that it also comes with culture. I think that it also, and that's from me speaking as a teacher. Because even at the schools that I've worked at, we've had these family, you know, meetings where we talk about nutrition, and, you know, we invite families to come out and we give them free boxes of healthy food, whether it's, you know, non-perishable items, as well as like fresh meat, as well as fresh fruits and vegetables. We've had those type of nights. It's about whether or not people show up. It's about changing the mentality. I've had parents bring their kids to school an hour late and they come in there with a full Burger King meal of literally pancakes and bacon, and we're like, we're trying to teach. Like, this is writing, and your child just came in here with pancakes in the middle of my class. They're eating. I was the teacher that did not allow them to eat Takis for breakfast. Literally, I was like, no, put it away. You're not eating that. So, I mean, I've seen it from the health side. I've also seen from the education side, and just even having conversations with younger moms about nutrition and not wanting to get into arguments, because I'm just like, it's your child. But you know.
Right. So I think Dr. Kofi Neal brings up a few strong points. One is, you know, when you look at the state programs, the WIC programs, the programs that are supposed to help with mothers,
they were really
who you know, who are getting some level of assistance from the states, or all of those things. Like, is that enough? Because you're right. I mean, if you're just sitting in an office watching a video, that just doesn't seem like it would connect as much as doing some other activity where you really understand that the first 1,000 days of a child's life is going to determine their health habits, is going to determine their eating habits, their mental stability. Like, I'm wondering if that needs to be changed, Doc.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think just starting from that place of empathy, food and nutrition security greatly impacts the health of our families, but it also impacts our decision making, right? Like when we're under that significant toxic stress, when we're under that palpable stress, it affects how we make decisions. When we have reduced income, when we are now trying to stretch our food, we're trying to make sure we purchase food items that are going to last. Unfortunately, fresh produce oftentimes is a little bit more expensive. Unfortunately, fresh produce oftentimes is not going to last as long as those Takis are going to last. And at the same time, when I give that banana, I'm not going to get that same smile on my child's face than when I give that chip, or when I give that other item that's been designed, ultra processed, designed to give that child that smile. As a parent, I want to make sure that my child is happy as well. I may not have the resources to make sure that child is happy through other means. We may not be able to travel around the world, but I know this food can transform their smile and make me feel good about myself as well. So food plays a huge role in culture. Food plays a huge role in how I can provide satisfaction. But to answer your question, to get down to the nitty gritty, food insecurity is a complex thing. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. We see it all over the place. And at the same time, we have to realize that these programs oftentimes are supplemental, but they can be huge benefits to help families through times of hardship. One of the programs you mentioned is WIC. Another one to think about is the Child and Adult Care Food Program, CACFP, which is basically child care meals that are available in many daycares, child care centers. This is a program that many families are able to get up to 2 meals and a snack a day at their child care center. One of the things we should do is make sure that at your school, at your site, is this provider giving child care meals at this site that are meeting these nutritional standards? It's a great way for a child to get full, nutritious foods to really impact their lives. And I think we can think about this through a more comprehensive lens and tap into the variety of resources to help families, as we've been talking about thus far.
So I mean,
actually, you know that now a lot of children that are in public schools, their families are actually getting those PEBT cards now, where they're getting, and they get one for every single child. So I think that's a really, really great initiative that has been started. It was started back during summer programs over COVID, but now it's something that they're actually getting in the school year. So I think that's another really great resource that I'm seeing more and more cities start to roll out. Of course, it's not universal just yet, but just in the fact that some cities and states across the country are starting to notice that that's such a big deal and it's so important. I'm really happy to see that. And I have friends of mine who called me up and told me about it, and I'm like, I want one. But I think that's really, really great that they're recognizing that, you know, it's not enough to just feed kids at school. Kids are also hungry at home. And so having that, you know, PEBT card or whatever have you, it does help families to be able to supplement. I mean, if you are already spending money on groceries or maybe already getting, you know, your food stamp supplement assistance. And so now this is even more assistance to help with families to be able to get more healthier, you know, food.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here's the other thing I think, Doc, and Nira and I, we've done work advocating and really seeing this. I'm from Baltimore, and in parts of Baltimore City, West Baltimore, East Baltimore, you have these neighborhoods, and this is something I always saw. We have more corner stores in Baltimore where people go to get their milk, bread, eggs, and other essential items, right, from corner stores because they don't have access to the largest supermarkets, right? I remember in West Baltimore, we used to have a Target there that shut down, but Target served as a place to get, you know, your clothes, of course, and some, you know, better options in food.
Well, Faraji, you know that, like, so I love that, like you mentioned that, and I think that's another reason why Amazon launched that whole rollout where you can use your PEBT cards or your EBT cards now to even purchase food online and have your groceries delivered to you. I think that's another, like, I think that Dr. Kofi and so many other people are thinking of, like, are asking these amazing questions, and then they're trying to find ways to make it easier for families of all different shapes and sizes and backgrounds to have access to this food. So I know, like, even my mom who's been sick, that's how she gets her groceries, by going online and ordering them and having them delivered right to her door. So I think there are a lot of, I don't want us to get stuck in this space of always just like excuse. I want us to get in a space where we're like, you know what? Let me tap into this resource. Let me tap into that one, because there are so many resources that actually are not being utilized. They're underutilized. And I think that we have to spread the word more and more and more about the different programs and opportunities and things out there, because they're there. You know, I don't want to say I can't get fresh groceries when you can literally pick up your tablet or phone and you can order fresh groceries, and you don't have to.
I agree with you. And Dr. Kofi, my point was, you know, listening to what Nira said and understanding that there is a cost to this stuff, right? Like, you know, food insecurity happens because not only because of the proximity of that food source to the community, but because, you know, you might have a store nearby, but if it costs so much money to purchase the basic necessities to feed a family, you know, that's problematic as well. I'm looking at Melissa Terry checked in on our chat. She says, look, I know it sounds crazy, but even with $30,000 a year paying rent and health insurance and everything you need, you struggle with food insecurity big time. $30,000 is nothing.
Not a lot of money at all.
That's not a lot of money.
No.
You know what I mean? Not even to a college student, you know?
No.
So Doc, talk to us about, you know, how do we, you know, mothers and families, how do they take care or make sure the first 1,000 days we're going to do the right by our children in their terms of nutrition, but how can they do that in a cost-effective way, given, especially now where the inflationary times that we're living in?
Yeah, it's a great point. So I want to highlight something real quick. So typically, like you said, families living their life, they have a financial hit of some sort, right? So a job removed, income reduced at the job, variety of different reasons that could happen. That food budget is often the first thing to go. That food budget is so flexible for people's homes, right? I can buy a lot more items, a lot less items. That food budget is so what we call fungible. So what we end up seeing is families, typically, they will start to decrease the quality of that food first, And if that keeps happening, they then start to decrease the quantity, the amount of that food. So families will get by. They will stretch their foods. They will do whatever it takes. They will buy items that are going to stretch, right? That are cheaper, easily, convenient at the corner store. That's going to give them some more time. That's going to taste great, feel great, make me feel happy. But at the same time, we have to realize, how do we think about this in the more of the long-term approach? We can think about food pantries. We can think about a food bank. We can think about soup kitchens locally nearby. Those are great. Those are emergency resources. They never were meant to sustain families for more of a long term. We know that there's an issue.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Because I think I want to just key in on that point you just made. Food pantries and what other resources, brother?
Food banks. Yep. So food banks being large, right? That oftentimes provide food to the food pantries, at the churches, at the all kinds of different sites around the community. You may be able to find these small food pantries, and then soup kitchens where typically you get hot foods, right? You sit down, eat a hot meal. Foods. You may go and do a soup kitchen day where you prepare foods for families. Those things are emergency needs. They were never meant to be sustainable. And if you think about the cultural norms. For me, for anybody else, maybe the food that's being served at that food pantry or that soup kitchen may not be foods that my family eats, right? So how do I then provide the sense of nutrition security? Because to think about nutrition security, the quality of the food, I have to also think about health equity. And health equity means, in particular, I got to think about, who am I serving? Who am I working alongside? And I think that's a really important piece. When you think about addressing food insecurity more effectively, as we've been talking about, the federal nutrition programs are quite important in addressing them. You're thinking about your food stamp, your SNAP. You all mentioned that. We talked a little bit about the WIC program, but the WIC program is huge. From prenatal period all the way to the age of 5, families can access the WIC program. And one thing I wanted to highlight important in that WIC program, families typically drop off of WIC around age 1. At 1, families fall off. Some families don't know that they can stay on till 5. Some families don't see the benefit in it afterwards, but there are great benefits. You can talk about the eggs and the cereals and the beans, those kind of things. But there's also cash value benefits that you get. You can get up to $35 to $47 a month. And then depending on how many children in the home, you can get those benefits to be purchasing fresh fruits and vegetables. These fresh fruits and vegetables, we know, impact our health. We know reduces food security. We know improves our overall health in the long run. And we know poor diet is one of the leading risk factors for death and for worsening morbidity or lifestyle overall. So we know these programs can greatly help. And again, that first 1,000 days, which we're highlighting today, we know if we do those things early on, it creates the platform for a future of improved optimal health.
Hey, Doc and Nira, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, Doc, if we can just have for just a few more minutes of your time, I want to have that conversation around daycare centers. And how do we have these discussions around nutrition insecurity and food insecurity in daycares? What do parents need to look for? Nira, I know you got some insight into that as well. So, folks, we're going to continue the conversation. Continue to post your thoughts on our streaming platforms of YouTube and Facebook. And let's continue to have the discussion around nutrition insecurity and food insecurity, especially their impact on Black and Brown communities. Stay with us. Those discussions will continue right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
This is our time, our moment to move forward. Beyond the gun violence, the hospital closures, the unaffordable housing, Brian Kemp's Georgia for the wealthiest few. Stacey Abrams is looking out for every Georgian. She'll invest our $6 billion surplus in the fundamentals, education, healthcare, housing, and a good living, putting more money in your pocket to build one Georgia where everyone has the freedom to thrive.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
We've got to stand up. Republicans are banning abortion rights, tearing down democracy, blocking progress. But when Democrats stand together, we win. Because we voted, Democrats stood up for black lives, voting to ban police chokeholds, stood up for black women, putting one on the Supreme Court, stood up for our families, lowering cost of health care and prescriptions and capping insulin, and stood up for millions by slashing student debt. This November, let's stand up together and keep making progress.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Dr. Kofi Essel, who is a board-certified pediatrician, and talking about nutrition and food insecurity and the impact that it has on a child's first 1,000 days. We've also been checking in with Culture Crew member Nira Muhammad, who's a mother and educator and the host of Queen Talks with Nira podcast, to get her insight and analysis on what we're seeing around food issues and their impact on a child's growth and learning. Now, we want to continue to have the conversation because we got to also look at the issue of daycare centers. Dr. Kofi, how do we have this conversation around daycare centers and making sure that they provide good food for us at this time, especially for our children?
Yeah, great point. So with daycare centers, I mentioned before, one of the big programs that you can see in daycare centers is that child and adult care food program, CACFP, or what we call child care meals. A lot of daycares already are using this program, but for those who are not, this is a great opportunity for parents to advocate. Right? Typically, when you're looking for a daycare, that may be one of the criteria you're looking for to make sure, hey, are they serving fresh meals at that school? Those meals that are served at that school, some people at the daycare, they actually will prepare those meals, right? Or they can purchase it from restaurants, they can purchase from other vendors, bring that food into the school and provide for those children in that school. Again, about 2 meals and oftentimes snack. Again, sometimes getting a half or up to 2/3 of the meals for the whole day in that school, in that daycare. And that's a great opportunity to do that. How do we know what's on that menu? How are we sort of keeping on top of that? A few things. You got to talk to that daycare provider. Talk to that daycare provider. Check in with them, seeing what kind of things that they're serving on that meal. If they're using the CACFP program, they're supposed to be providing you a menu each and every week. You're supposed to be able to see what's coming up on that meal plan, what's coming up for that week. And in general, you can go and advocate for different things. And also, don't forget the power of community, making sure that we support each other. That's a great opportunity. Other parents in that center, can we be talking about ways that we can advocate together? Can we be talking about ways that we can support each other in that daycare to provide great meals for our kids in that school as well? So those are some great ways that we can do that.
Nira, when you're talking about that level of engagement or that level of involvement with parents in daycares, right? I mean, there are 1,000 different daycares out there. Yeah. You got home daycares, you have, daycares that have established buildings and all of that. What were some of the things that you were considering when you're, especially around the issue of food? And what would you say to mothers out there who might be saying, you know what, I don't know if I'm having the right conversation about this to my daycare provider?
Yeah, I think it all depends. When I actually taught at a daycare, I taught at a daycare where we did not provide meals. Our parents provided food for their children. We provided snack only. I know for me, putting my child into daycare, it was really important for me to make sure that he was at a place that served food that was conducive with our diet. We don't eat pork, and so it was important for me to make sure that he was in a space that does not serve pork. I would say that know what you're looking for. Are you looking for a daycare that does provide all the meals? Whereas like a Head Start is one that will provide all the meals. There are a lot of daycares that do not. So if you know that you want to have your child at a daycare, do your research. When you're looking up, word of mouth is another great one. Talk, like you said, utilize your community, talk to other moms. Hey, what daycare is your child at? Ask about the pay, ask about their, opportunities for other resources for payment. Because there are a lot of options to help moms with daycare costs as well. So I just say, try your best to utilize those resources, whether you're Googling, whether you're calling your state resources, whether you are reaching out to friends or family or community or your church members or school, even your schools. They know resources as well. A lot of schools have community school coordinators. Reach out to the school community coordinator if you have a younger child and maybe your child is in kindergarten, but you have a 3-year-old or 2-year-old. So there are resources there. Please use them. I know a lot of times I don't. Please tap into those resources because they really are there and they're so underutilized.
Absolutely. Doc, we got a couple of moments left. Where can folks get more information? I mean, we've been talking about a number of these issues, and my hope is that our conversation today will enlighten some folks and most importantly, inform some folks about how important it is for them to make these decisions. So how can we get some more resources? Where can we go for more information?
Yeah, there's so much more to talk about here. So a few things to highlight. So childcare.gov is a great sort of federal website. You can look up other childcare centers around your area as well. I always say talk to your pediatrician site, your pediatric provider, the social workers often there as well. You can work with them as well. To learn more about what we're talking about around 1,000 Days, 1,000 Days organization has a wonderful website, 1000days.org. Again, that's 1000days.org. You can follow them on Facebook or Instagram, and you can kind of see what's going on with them as well. Something I didn't mention today, I know we don't have a ton of time, but I just wanted to highlight the foods that are started early on for a child, especially in that first 6 to 12 months. These foods if you do it the right way, you can prevent allergies from forming, the peanut allergies, the egg allergies, all these things. We also know that trying vegetables and some of these other foods earlier on as well can make your child not become a picky eater. Again, doing those foods early on. If you are choosing to breastfeed, mom, what are you eating? The baby's tasting that food in the breast milk. Baby's tasting the food in the amniotic fluid when you're eating food in the womb. There's all kinds of things we can talk about on this, but in general, that's a place you can go and learn more. 1000days.org. Thank you for your time.
Hey, Dr. Kofi Essel, thank you so much, brother. And I would love to bring you back. There's the website right there. Boom, folks, letting you know about the work that 1000days.org is doing. 1,000 Days, the nonprofit, is doing around this issue of nutrition and food insecurity. Doc, we appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much. We would love to bring you back on as we continue to have conversations about food and nutrition, brother, and especially about the health and well-being of our young people.
Would love to. Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. All right, folks, let's talk a little bit about something else that I think is important, which is where we are in our TV viewing. Now, if you did not know, and let's bring Nira into the conversation.
Baraji, I feel so bad because during that whole conversation that we just had, in my mind, I was thinking, like, can we talk about family planning?
Okay, I mean that has to probably be another conversation.
Is like I feel like feeding a kid is like the basic thing. Like if you can't even feed.
But you know what though? But you know it. You probably know it more than I do, right? And I mean, you've been in the classroom. You've been working with children.
I know, and I've seen some things, and I'm just like, why did you even go have another baby? You can't even afford the ones you got, sis.
Well, right. That's a whole different.
So that's why I'm like, my mind.
I don't know, Dr. Kofi. Dr. Kofi, they like, hey, Doc, why black people having more babies if they know they can't afford it?
Yeah, I'm not even going to ask the doctor that. I'm not trying to be mean because guess what? Life happens. You could have been in a great financial place when you decide to have kids, but you could lose your job. You could lose a spouse. So many different things can happen.
Absolutely.
But that's not what I be seeing though. So I'm gonna just. But we're going to table that.
We're going to table that. We're going to definitely table that.
I want the online culture members to be like, yo, she is a bitch.
No, nobody thinks that. I think that, that's a part of the conversation, but we're looking at once the baby is here, what can you do to make sure that the baby stays healthy?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Utilize those resources,
giving your
ladies.
child the chance. And it may not even be your child. It might be your niece, your nephew, it might be your grandson or granddaughter, right? Your little brother, little sister, whoever. But the fact is, the child deserves a chance to health and well-being.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. All right, let me just share get some thoughts on this real quick, and then we're going. I just want to get your take on this. There was a new study about TV that came out that showed that white men who are series creators are favored more to get the access to big budget production deals than people of color, especially Black folks, Black women in particular. Here's the look at the article, folks. There it is. This is coming from the Griot. The series, when you're talking about when we're talking about TV consumption and the number of shows that are currently out there, they found that based on this study, that it showed that there was diversity on and off screen, but white men had a significant edge in creating high budget series, according to this study from the UCLA that was released yesterday. The difference is most apparent in the digital realm that includes Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, and other streaming services, according to the latest Hollywood diversity report from the UCLA's Entertainment and Media Research Initiative. Now, I thought this is interesting because you are a screenwriter. You are stepping into this industry and into this space. But what does this say to you in terms of your own journey of getting your projects greenlit and seeing the landscape?
Well, I started a program with NYU for the Film, TV, and Essentials program earlier this year. And that was one of the things that I learned very early on, because in studying the history of film and TV, this is not a new issue at all. At first, there was a time when you had to be a white male to even get your story out there in general. Like,
right.
you couldn't even like, there were very few women in these big budget roles. There were very few women who got to lead or, to be the lead writer or the lead creator or the director. That was we're still, the number of women directors, it's still a big deal because it's still so small.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you think of big directors, you're thinking of James Cameron, Christopher Nolan, Steven Spielberg. Those are like the big names that you think of. Those are all white males. So
right.
Yeah, I just met an amazing Black woman from my son's school. I was telling her, about what I'm doing, my script and all that good stuff. And she was like, I want to help you. She's like, I want to help you because I work in the industry. White males do it all the time. All that red tape that we as screenwriters are told that we have to go through. She said so many white men have just slashed that red tape because they know people. And the person that they know is like, I got you. I'm taking this. I got you. And we as Black people are told, I've been told I need to get my following up on Instagram. What the hell does my following on Instagram have to do with how dope of a screenwriter I am? Are you telling David that, like, when the writers of Game of Thrones, David and Ben, was HBO like, how many followers do you have on Instagram? No one gives a shit. No one cares about how many followers James Cameron, and I know they've proven their worth at this point. But even still, when did my talent as a writer, why is that connected to how many influencers, if I'm an influencer on Instagram? So it's like, I definitely feel like as a Black woman, we have to jump through so many different hurdles. And then I think too, as a Black woman, it's really hard to even get in there because it's like, once they do have their few token Black women or Black men in the industry, I feel like they're like, those are just the go-to. We're just going to go to Shonda. We're going to go to Issa. You know what I mean? Because they've already established themselves. They already have that name. They already have that following. And so it's really hard. It's really hard.
Well,
feeling like
Issa
I always have to like try to break through these extra barriers that other people don't have to.
And to that point, I mean, Issa already had a following because of her YouTube show, but Shonda, Courtney Kemp, they didn't. I mean, they're on social media now.
Even though Issa had a following, she still was told that she wasn't pretty enough. Like, she went to so many major networks and she was literally told, you're not pretty enough to be a lead. HBO Max were the ones who were like, nah. But don't get me wrong, they switched up her whole story. Like, not her whole story, but the Insecure that we got, that was not the pitch that she gave HBO. I am praying that does not happen to me. I feel really strong and insecure in the full script that I wrote, because I love film and I love studying film and I like in TV. And I was actually going to write a novel. So when you're a novelist or you're someone who wants to write a novel, you have your whole story. You're writing your whole story. And so for me, being a screenwriter isn't just about writing for TV. I'm writing a story. I'm here to tell a story, and I want to tell that story from start to finish.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me share a little bit more of some of the dollar signs behind this situation. Let's go to Keenan and Ariel. Let's go to the second quote two. In the biggest budget playground, that is the digital platform, folks, white men show creators benefited the most, with 21% enjoying per episode budgets of $7 million or more, according to the report, which cited Netflix opulent The Crown as an example. By comparison, researchers found that 11.1% of people of color created pricey streaming shows, with white female show creators lagging further at 2.9% of those entrusted with per episode budgets of $7 million or more. WandaVision on Disney Plus, the sole example found. The people of color and women with the biggest budgets mostly come from the film world or previous TV hits. This is from Ana Cristina Ramon, one of the report's authors and director of entertainment and media research initiative. So if we're seeing this again, this all plays into a white male gaze of telling stories, right? White men continuing to, even though there's more diversity in the industry, we see more diversity in the writers' room, it's still being led by white men and women. Black, white women are still fighting to have their stories told.
Yeah, it's not even just that, Raji. We're fighting to get paid the same amount, because that's the issue. Yeah. We're not getting the same budget. But it's not just in the film and TV industry. It's in the boardroom. It's pretty much wherever we are. We're still begging to be paid.
So how do we break through that, though?
If not more, because we're doing more work. We have, no offense, fellas, but a lot of times we have more talent.
So what do you say, Nero, when people say, well, why keep going to these big streaming platforms? Why not do something on a smaller platform?
Who's watching Tubi? Who's watching? You want your stuff to get out there. You want people to see it. I know for me, if someone says, oh, well, Nero, do you want your show to be on Tubi? Hell no, I don't want my show on Tubi. I don't. Why can't I say, if a white male can say, I want my show on Showtime, my show's going to be on Showtime, why can't I say the same thing? Why do I have to go to the lower, the lesser, the less streamed, the lower rated? And again, now you're pushing me down to the bottom.
Right.
Again, you're still telling me that my talent doesn't put me at a premium station. And a lot of times the reason why women are taking the shittier deals is because we feel like if I don't take this deal, I'm not going to get a deal at all.
You're right.
I know women who've been afraid to even say at a job interview how much they want to make because they're afraid of being turned down for the position. Whereas men will come in and ask for that $15,000 to $20,000 higher salary, probably don't deserve it, but they'll get it.
Right. Chris,
a woman will be told, that's actually a little bit higher than what we wanted to go. Whole time they actually had $20,000 left in the budget. They just chose not to give it to you. They put it somewhere else. I know situations where that has happened to Black women.
Oh, well, no, I can only imagine. Really quickly, Chris Big, you say, why are we fighting to gain access instead of creating our own platforms?
Who's streaming them? Who watches BET? Who is watching? And I am talking on a large scale. First of all, as a writer, I'm going to tell you this as a writer. I do not only write for Black people. I am a writer. I'm a lover of TV. I am a lover of my favorite movie is Pride and Prejudice. My favorite book is Pride and Prejudice, written by Jane Austen. I am not one-dimensional. Don't place me in some box like I can only write erotica or Zane type novel. Don't do that. I am just as talented as white people, as white writers. If their shows can be universal, why can't mine? I want my show to be universal. I am not only writing for Black women. Don't place us in that small box. That's not fair. I want to
agree.
break glass ceilings. Don't put me inside of a box.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we wrap up this part of the discussion, what would you recommend? How do we look at this? Should we start to change our TV watching habits and supporting Black shows? What would we do to make sure that Black women, and Black content creators, series creators, get what they deserve because they are creating fantastic content?
That's going to have to happen within that realm of that world, within creators. I don't really think that as a viewer, there's really much that you could do about it. The Crown was a fucking great show. I would never tell you don't watch The Crown. It was amazing. Like, it's well written, well directed, the cinematography, everything about The Crown. I'm not going to say don't go watch The House of Dragon, especially when I see how many amazing women work on that show. Regardless of whether or not women are not, we may not be getting, the top of the money that we want. But I know and I see a lot of amazing women doing amazing things. Even when you look at the Black Panther, the Black women who did all the costumes and set designs. I mean, that's Black women. That's still Black art.
And people don't know. And there are people don't know that Ryan Coogler, who is the director, he's the writer of Black Panther. I mean, that's still, even though Marvel has rolled out the red carpet for Black Panther, that was still a big risk, right? Because this is Stan Lee's story. And he took that story and modernized it in such a way to bring it to life on film. He took that. He wrote the second one, right? Of course, with some other writers. But I mean, he's a young Black male writing a major story, or taking out from what was started from comic books and writing it and turning it into a screenplay, and then directing it. You know what I'm saying? And then putting it out there.
I'm hashtag recast T'Challa.
Oh, no doubt. That's a whole different conversation. We still gonna see it.
I can't get over how excited my son was about Black Panther. I can't get over the Black boy joy of seeing so many Black boys have Black Panther to look up to. And I don't get me wrong, I love Shuri. I'm not saying we don't want a Black woman Panther, but I don't think it's fair. I do not think that it's fair that we don't get another T'Challa. Like, T'Challa did not die in the comic books in that way, and I just don't think that it's fair to do his character that way. And I love Chadwick Boseman. May he rest forever in peace. But I think we do a dishonor to the character of Black Panther by not recasting T'Challa. That's just
and guess what? Because they recast major heroes.
Listen, I told you, I'm a huge fan of Harry Potter. If you follow the Harry Potter, taking out Dumbledore, and if any of you follow Harry Potter, the very first Harry Potter, Dumbledore in the first two films, he passed away after the second film. So that means films 3 through 8, I guess, because 8 films, 3 through 8, they were all by a different Dumbledore, because you can't take out Dumbledore. There's certain that he's a heart of the story. So taking out Dumbledore because the actor died, that would have been so unfair to the story.
Absolutely.
As a lover of stories, I'm like, don't fuck up the story. No offense. Like, we need the story to continue.
We need the story to continue. Absolutely. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, got a new segment. Please, folks, you want to be a part. You want to stay tuned, because what we got to say is absolutely dope. This is another major milestone for the culture here on the Black Star Network. So stay tuned. We're going to come back and I'm going to tell you what this new segment is. Stay with me. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
This is our time, our moment to move forward, beyond the gun violence, the hospital closures, the unaffordable housing. Brian Kemp's Georgia for the wealthiest few. Stacey Abrams is looking out for every Georgian. She'll invest our $6 billion surplus in the fundamentals, education, healthcare, housing, and a good living, putting more money in your pocket to build one Georgia where everyone has the freedom to thrive.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch get wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let me bring in Culture Crew member Nira Muhammad for this final piece on this one, because Nira got everybody talking about Black Panther. Anyway, we will move on from that conversation. But here's the big conversation. This is something that I think y'all will truly, truly love. It's a segment that we're going to be starting called Tell Us What We're Missing. And this segment is all about you, the online culture crew, to tell us exactly the stories that you may think that are dope, that are important, that we just didn't talk about. And here's the thing. Not only are you telling us what we're missing, but imagine coming on camera and debating with the likes of Nira Muhammad about certain stories. So, here's what I want y'all to do. Here's what I want y'all to do. If you want to come onto the culture, and we're taking this to the next level, folks, then we want you to send me an email. And Keenan and Ariel, let's post the email address. This is my email address. And look, I'm going to take a look at it, have my team of producers and my culture crew, we're going to look at it. And I want to start bringing on those of you who are part of the online culture crew to join us in the conversation, be a panelist. So check me out at Faraji Muhammad, Faraji at blackstarnetwork.com. This is the email address, Faraji at blackstarnetwork.com. I want you to email us your topic idea. Email us a little bio. Doesn't have to be long, folks, but talk to us about what the works, what's your work, and email us. And guess what? We're going to start bringing you on as early as, Nira, how early can we do it? Can we do it like next week?
I think so.
Can we do it like next week? And folks,
that sounds
you can be on air with Nira or Rashad or Sinead, and y'all can share. Look, so many of you are already
they are intense. Let me tell you, I've been on with Rashad. I've been on with Rashad, Sinead,
right?
Iman,
you've done the tour of culture crew members, so it's all good.
I'm a culture crew member that gets around, okay? Like, what day you want me? I'm saying
what day you want. What day you want it and how you want it. So here's again, folks. If you want to be a part of our panelists, you got something to say. I already got a couple of people that have personally reached out and said, Faraji, can I come on to the show? I'm saying, yes, you can. You can come on to the show. All we need is your email. You to email me your topic and a brief bio, like a couple of sentences, 4 or 5 sentences about the work that you do. And let's bring you on.
On your Instagram. You know
I got to post this on my Instagram.
So yes, this week, all the instructions will be on his Instagram, which means y'all better be following Faraji Muhammad on Instagram. I want Faraji to tell me that he got at least like 100 new follows today, because I know that there are like hundreds, maybe thousands of people watching the show.
Hundreds of people are tuned in right now.
I don't know. How many?
No, I'm just letting you know. I'm looking at the numbers. Hundreds of people are tuned in right now.
That
we got a lot of
if
new
you
watchers.
are not following Faraji Muhammad on Instagram,
hey, Keena, let's put up my Instagram right now.
Put it up. Where is it at?
Put it up. This is my Instagram, at the real Faraji on Instagram, at Faraji on Twitter. All right. But follow me. But I want you to send me an email, Faraji@blackstarnetwork.com. There it is. There goes my Instagram. There goes my Twitter. Yes. I need more followers on Instagram, because I know a lot of you on Instagram and Twitter.
You on Instagram? Can I tell everybody what happened? All right. So those of you that might be jumping on Faraji's Instagram right now, I know you are. You are. He don't have a lot of followers on Instagram. It's not his fault though. He had a nice following.
I did, though.
Y'all. He got hacked. He was DMing everybody. I had so many people hit me up. The Faraji. I was getting annoyed that people were asking me,
Keena,
did you get hacked?
Hey, Keena, you gotta play Khaled one day, bro. Play DJ Khaled one day, bro. My Instagram was hacked, y'all. It was hacked. And you know how long, if you play it again, Keena.
Nah, it really fucking breaks my heart.
Breaks my heart. Say it, Faraji.
It breaks my heart. Years of work. However, we're going to bounce back from it. That's why it's important for y'all to join us in this conversation. Look, I want y'all to tell us what we're missing. I want y'all to email me at Faraji@blackstarnetwork.com. I want y'all to share with me the stories that are important for you that we didn't cover here on the show that week, and let's have a conversation. And I want to see some of your faces. So my culture crew, my people that I know who are always talking, I don't want to have to start naming some names, but Corinna, Damon, Brother King Lee, Lana.
Wow. You choking? Some water? Need a glass of water.
Karen, come on. Oh, you see what I'm saying? Like,
I feel like they should DM you like, we need more Nira. Pay her. I'm like, treat me like Lamar Jackson. Pay her.
So look, I want to bring the community out. So many, look, y'all see that we have these conversations, and real talk. See, y'all have some of the most insightful discussions online on the chat. Yeah, man, we need to bring it out. And look, all I'm asking you to be a panelist for like a 20-25 minute segment, and you can go in. Depending on your situation, you might be a new on-air culture crew.
Oh, y'all trying to finesse a permanent spot. Listen.
Hey, there's a lot of talent in the streets.
Because I don't have a permanent spot. I told y'all.
Look. Nira don't know. She about to move up in the culture metaverse. You know what I'm saying? Multiverse. She about to go into a different space with her. So that's a different conversation. But I want y'all to tell us what's missing. All right. Yes. Hit me up at Faraji@blackstarnetwork.com. Follow me on Instagram at The Real Faraji, on Twitter at Faraji, and do the same for Nira as well. Hit her up on I Call Her Queen. Hit her up. Definitely check out her podcast. She got a dope podcast called Queen Talks with Nira. Dope ass podcast. She talks about, and this week's the last one she just did was Beauty at What Cost, talking about the beauty industry and its impact on Black women's finances. We talked about the culture with me and her. There was a dope audio, dope conversation. I mean, this is season 3. Look, folks, this is how we build community. Nira, what other things you doing? You want to put it out there?
just follow me on Instagram. You can follow me at Queen Talks with Nira. That way you can see when I'm live. I go live every Sunday to discuss that week's podcast. So like this past Sunday when I went live, my daughter, my 3-year-old and I, we actually did a little tutorial on how to make your own sugar scrubs at home. So it's really, really fun. Like every week I want to just bring something new and fun, like to the podcast. Again, I'm always asking for same thing like you just did. Tell me what you want to hear. What are we talking about? And then just making those lives really, really fun. So make sure you come through. You can come through with your drink in your hand, whatever. We have fun. We cut up. So definitely follow me at Queen Talks with Nira, or you can follow me at Nira_Muhammad, Nira_Muhammad. Either way, I'm expecting Faraji and I's follows to go up, and I do follow back. I'm a follow backer. So.
I do follow back as well. I actually follow back. And I enjoy. Y'all know, like if y'all putting out some foolishness, I'm gonna tell y'all right now. Like, hey Damon, you think the Block Church is serious online? Try to follow me with some foolishness, brother.
Oh my goodness.
I don't like it. Don't follow me with foolishness, man. I don't want to scroll through dumb shit.
I like a little dumb shit on my timeline. So if you funny online,
look, if you got the dumb stuff, then make sure, folks, that it's still factual and accurate.
Don't follow me if you're a Kanye West supporter.
Yeah, well, there you go. Nira, always a pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
I know.
Make sure y'all check her out. Queen Talks with Nira. She's doing a lot of amazing things, and we can expect some even greater things to happen from her. Nira, thank you so much for being so good for the culture.
Always. Thanks for having me, Faraji.
Absolutely. All right, folks. So that's the big announcement from me. Hopefully you thought that this might take us to the next level. Let's continue to build a community. I told you I'm serious about y'all. Y'all are so important to me. Y'all are so important to us here at The Culture that we do not want to take you for granted. Your voice means everything. Just like we can ask you for money, your dollars, your voice is currency. Your voice means everything. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of this conversation. All of my new watchers, welcome to The Culture. This is an interactive, engaging platform where we talk about issues that are pertinent to Black folks in this country, but more importantly, talk about issues that are pertinent to the culture that affects us all. So I thank you for tuning in today. And I thank my online culture crew for always keeping it real, keeping it 100, keeping it authentic. Thank you. Big shout out to my team. I got to thank King Keenan, my producers, Ariel, Joel. Thank you. And the dynamic folks in the control room. Thank you so much. Folks, stay tuned. Up next at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, it's the big man himself, Big Brother Roland Martin with RMU. All right, make sure y'all stay tuned for that. And as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll reconnect on Monday. I hope you have a safe and peaceful weekend, and let's connect. Let's continue to build the community. Tell us what we're missing. Hit me up at Faraji at BlackStarNetwork.com. Other than that, talk to you on Monday, folks. Have a blessed weekend. Peace.